Hey guys, it's Chris from NeedRiceBake.com. Today we will be making same-day homemade bagels. They are amazing. One of my favorite homemade breads. We're going to start out by blooming active dry yeast in some warm water and honey. You don't have to do this. It will activate if you just dump it into some dough, but it's best practice. It just performs better and it ensures that your yeast is active and good before you put it in your dough. It takes 5 to 10 minutes and it will look like that. Foamy, frothy, fully bloomed, and ready to go into your flour and salt mixture. So I just gave it a quick stir to make sure nothing settled on the bottom. Everything comes out of the cup just that much more clean. All right, so I'm going to mix this all up, and I start out with my fingers close together with no space between them because it just allows for a cleaner mixing process with your hands. There's less space for the dough to cling to that way. And then once it's incorporated a little bit more, I just kind of go to town with it. But don't worry about getting everything fully incorporated here because you're going to dump it out onto an unfloured work surface. So it's nice to have a little bit of that flour still floating around there. And it'll get all incorporated when you go to knead. So also go ahead and wash your hands in between dumping that out as well. The less you have on your hands, the cleaner your kneading process will start out, and that means it'll just end better as well, okay? So as we get started here, all I'm trying to do is just create a working surface on the outside, trying to get a nice tight work surface on the outside. It's too shaggy and not enough gluten to really get tight, but it's the beginning stages. If you don't start off by trying to form that little skin, it just might be a little bit messier for a longer period of time. But the whole point of kneading here is to align your gluten networks. And what you're wanting to do is continue to work the same skin over and over and over again. And the way you do that is you make sure that you are creating a seam when you knead, and then make sure that the seam is always face up when you go to rotate. So as you see here, what I'm doing is I'm going to push out, roll it up, push out, roll it up, push out, roll it up, and it's going to create a seam that's parallel to me. I make a quarter turn, flip it so that the seam is now perpendicular to me and facing up, and I repeat that over and over and over again. Seam up, perpendicular to me, push out and roll, and it'll be parallel, flip it over, quarter turn so that it is face up and perpendicular to me, and it'll always ensure you're working with the skin down, which is going to allow a cleaner surface. So this is 6 minutes of kneading, not nearly done yet. It's really messy and it is definitely tearing, but I'm gonna give it 3 minutes rest. And when I come back, it's going to be much less sticky, and you're going to be amazed after just a couple of pushes and a little bit more kneading here. It's going to create a nice smooth surface that is so much easier to work with. And we're only going to knead for about 3 more minutes, and this is going to come all the way together. But let me just tell you again about the kneading process here, where you're pushing out, rolling up, pushing out, rolling up, so that you have a seam facing you, parallel to you, and then you flip it up so that the seam is up, and you're creating a perpendicular seam to yourself as well. And this is going to just make sure that all of the flour inside is getting the water pushed into it. So as that seam on, or the skin on the outside is getting tighter and tighter by doing this, water is getting pushed more and more inside, causing all of that flour to absorb the water and create a less sticky dough here, okay? So one more time, I'm gonna show you this. You go with the seam up, create a seam so that it's parallel to yourself, and there you go. And that's 3 minutes in. Nice, smooth ball of dough we have now here. No more tearing. Nice, strong gluten structure. So we grab a bowl that is oiled. We're going to dump that ball in there, mix it around a little bit just to make sure that the oil coats and it's not going to stick. We're going to cover this up and give it its first rise for about an hour to hour and a half on the counter. Okay, you can use a dry towel, wet towel, plastic is what I use. It's perfectly okay here for giving dough. We're going to go ahead and punch this down. You notice I have flour on my fingers here. That's because I have a pan set aside here with some parchment paper, and I put a light flour coating on top of that because I'm going to place my bagels to rise on that pan. And it's just good to do it beforehand because it just leaves a little bit of flour on the hands when you punch down the dough. It's just less sticky that way. Not important, just kind of what I like to do when I'm working with bagels or another type of thing that I'm going to put on a floured surface to rise. Okay, so once I have this knocked down and degassed, I shaped it into a rectangle, and I'm going to begin cutting it into 8 equal pieces. And I like to mark my cuts before I make them, just to ensure they're as close to equal as I can get them. A little tip here is oftentimes the dough is going to spring back and create kind of rounded edges on you, and to get the same size cuts, you're going to need to make the 2 center cuts a little bit more narrow than you would make the outer edges, because with the rounding, if you cut them all the same width, you're going to have less dough on the 4 edges. Okay, and so from here we're shaping, and we're going to do this kind of the classic way, which is rolling it out into a snake. You're going to get it about twice as wide as your hand so that you can overlap them, so that you have an inch of overlapping. You're going to squeeze those together and then push and roll out, lift up, push and roll out, lift up, push and roll out. Don't go back and forth. It'll cause it to unroll itself and not stick together as well. And that's the basic process for creating your shaped bagels. And I'll show you again here, and it actually creates a smoother surface for your bagels when all is said and done. It's going to give you better chew in your bagel because it's going to help with gluten development and all of that as well. So there's a purpose to it. You can do the puncture method. This is just my preferred way of doing it. I think it creates a better bagel. And what we're going to do is we're going to, when these are shaped, we're going to set them on that floured pan, as I said before, and we're going to let these rest on the counter for 45 minutes, and then we'll put them in the fridge for 3 to 4 hours. You want them cold, because it's going to get stiff, it's going to stand up better, it's going to have better gluten structure as well. Better flavor, everything is better that way. And you're going to do 30 to 60 seconds per side. Got a little stuck here. It happens when you're crowding out a pan. So it already went 30 seconds on one side. I'm going to do 30 seconds on the other. And a side note here while I'm doing this really quickly, if you wanted to only do 4 bagels, say for lunch, make it same day, you could do that and then put 4 for overnight, because you can let these go in the fridge for 12 to 18 hours. So the way that you would do that is you would simply put 4 out on the counter for 45 minutes, throw them in the fridge for 3 to 4 hours. But with the other 4, just directly put them in the fridge. Don't let them sit on the counter, and let them go overnight for up to 18 hours. And you'll have fresh bagels in the morning and fresh bagels for lunch. Win-win, right? All right, so these are 30 seconds and they are coming out. I gave them a quick flip because I want the top facing up, and I had the bottom facing up at that point. And we're going to season them. No need to give them a wash at all. They are wet and they are super tacky and sticky. It's what makes the gel form on the outside, that boiling process. So it's going to be a nice crispy bagel, a dense bagel, but also have that chewy texture. So I used everything bagel there. You can use what you want. Bake at 450 degrees Fahrenheit for about 15 to 18 minutes. They'll come out golden brown, super crispy on the outside, really chewy on the inside. Look at that. Just stretch as I'm tearing it out. These things are delicious. I am going to go make myself a sandwich. Take care. Bye.